It was supposed to be a perfect Memorial Day weekend in Florida, sunshine beach trips, backyard barbecues, and long drives under clear blue skies. But by noon, everything changed. Out of nowhere, the air turned thick and electric. The horizon darkened as thunderheads towered above the coast, swallowing the sun. What began as a humid spring morning exploded into one of the most violent hailstorms Florida has seen in years. From Palm Bay to Miami, the sky opened with fury. Hailstones, first the size of peas, then quarters, and finally golf balls, pounded rooftops and cars like machine gun fire. Winds screamed down suburban streets at nearly 60 miles per hour, ripping branches from trees and sending trash cans tumbling down driveways. Drivers on the Palmetto Expressway pulled over as visibility vanished beneath walls of blinding rain. Skylights shattered, power lines sparked, streets flooded within minutes. For thousands, a peaceful weekend turned into sheer panic. And as emergency alerts lit up phones across the state, meteorologists warned this wasn't just a random thunderstorm, it was part of a massive weather outbreak stretching all the way from southern Alabama to South Florida. What began as a calm Saturday morning was now a full-scale disaster, and it was only the beginning. Late Saturday morning, Central Florida was already baking under a brutal sun. The air hung thick with humidity, the kind that makes every breath feel heavy, every step slower. Locals thought they were in for another typical spring afternoon, but the atmosphere had other plans. By 11:30 a.m., meteorologists at the National Weather Service in Melbourne noticed something alarming. Radar screens glowed with bright pink and purple core signatures of explosive updrafts capable of producing hail. The warning signs were unmistakable. Florida's calm skies were about to turn hostile. Temperatures had soared to 93 degrees Celsius, and the heat index hovered near 100 Dixit. Sea breezes from the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico collided over the peninsula, injecting bursts of energy into an already unstable atmosphere. In minutes, towering thunderheads began clawing their way into the upper atmosphere, their tops rising more than 40,000 feet high. The first distant thunder rolled over Brevard County, followed by flashes of lightning that lit the horizon like a strobe. Then came the unmistakable sound, a rapid metallic tapping that quickly grew into a deafening roar. Hail. At first it was harmless small pellets bouncing off rooftops. But within minutes the stones grew larger, marble-sized, quarter-sized, then golf balls. They slammed into cars' windows and roofs with relentless force. In cocoa and rockledge skylights shattered as hail pelted down in blinding waves. Patio screens tore apart. Cars parked in driveways looked like they had been hit by a sledgehammer, dozens of dents and spiderwebbed windshields. Social media erupted with videos showing streets blanketed in white, a surreal scene more like winter in the Midwest than spring in Florida. By 1:45 p.m., the National Weather Service had issued its second severe thunderstorm warning of the day, urging residents to take shelter. But for many, it was too late. The Sunshine State had already vanished behind a curtain of ice and rain, and the storm was just getting started. By mid-afternoon, the storm that had battered Melbourne was charging south, its dark core locked on Palm Bay. What appeared on radar as a swirling cluster of pink and red blobs was in reality a wall of chaos barreling toward neighborhoods that had no idea what was coming. At 2:15 p.m., the gust front hit with a sound locals compared to a jet engine. Winds screamed through the streets at nearly 60 miles per hour, snapping branches, toppling fences, and sending trash cans tumbling down the pavement. The air was alive, a violent mix of rain, hail, and lightning striking so close that the thunder seemed to shake the ground. On Tahoe Court, a massive live oak believed to be more than a century old split straight down the middle. The trunk cracked like thunder, and a school bus-length branch came crashing onto a single-story home. Inside, a family of 4 huddled in a hallway, listening as the ceiling groaned under the impact. Miraculously, the branch stopped just short of breaking through the roof. Moments later, Palm Bay fire rescue crews arrived, fighting both the elements and time. Their sirens were nearly drowned out by the roar of rain and hail hammering the streets. Firefighters waded through ankle-deep water with chainsaws in hand, carving their way toward the trapped family. Meanwhile, along Interstate 95, drivers pulled to the shoulder as visibility dropped to 0. Hailstones the size of golf balls bounced off windshields like bullets, and flashes of lightning struck power poles near Viera, triggering small explosions that lit the sky in electric blue. By 3:00 p.m., more than 8,000 residents were without power. Entire blocks went dark as transformers blew one after another. When the wind finally eased, Palm Bay looked like a battlefield. Broken branches everywhere shattered skylights glinting in puddles and cars covered in dents as if struck by shrapnel. The storm had moved on, but its message was clear. Florida's calm skies can turn deadly in an instant. While Palm Bay was still digging out from shattered branches and crushed rooftops downtown, Melbourne faced a different kind of disaster water. By mid-afternoon, the skies opened up with torrential rain so intense it blurred the horizon. The air buzzed with thunder, and every lightning flash revealed streets already beginning to flood. At first, it seemed like an ordinary Florida downpour, but within minutes, rainfall rates climbed past 4 inches per hour. The storm drains couldn't keep up. Water surged across intersections, pooling over curbs and sidewalks. Strawbridge Avenue, usually packed with cars and shoppers, disappeared beneath 3 inches of rainfall in just 45 minutes. Vehicles began to float sideways, their headlights shimmering underwater like beacons in a storm. Videos from locals flooded social media pickup trucks plowing through chest-deep water waves, crashing against storefronts, and hail still pinging off flooded cars. The surreal combination of hail and flash flooding made Melbourne look more like a coastal hurricane zone than a mid-May afternoon. Inside restaurants and small businesses, owners scrambled to move equipment and block doors as the water crept higher. The rain pounded so hard that conversation was impossible. The world outside was nothing but sound and motion. For many residents, the scene felt unreal. Palm trees swaying violently in the wind, hail clattering against floodwater, and thunder echoing like artillery fire. By the time the storm finally drifted south, Melbourne's downtown had turned into a shallow lake. Cars were stranded, power flickered across neighborhoods, and people stood in disbelief on porches staring at streets that had vanished beneath a sheet of muddy water. In less than an hour, one of Florida's most vibrant coastal cities had been transformed from sunshine and traffic lights to silence and standing water. And this was only the middle act of a storm that wasn't finished yet. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, South Florida braced for what meteorologists feared most, the storm's second wave. By 3:30 p.m., towering thunderheads boiled over the Everglades, their tops glowing white against a charcoal sky. Within minutes, radar showed several supercells moving straight toward Broward and Miami-Dade counties, fueled by the day's relentless heat and moisture. The first impacts hit Miramar and Pembroke Pines, where shoppers at the shops at Pembroke Gardens ran for cover as hail clattered off cars and storefronts. Winds gusted up to 58 miles per hour, ripping down street signs and knocking out traffic lights along Pines Boulevard. Dozens of royal palms, their roots loosened by saturated soil, toppled across roads and medians. Farther east in Fort Lauderdale, Beachgoers on Las Olas Beach watched in disbelief as a twisting waterspout formed offshore, a slender gray funnel spinning across the surface of the Atlantic. Lightning struck nearby. Moments later, the explosion of thunder so close it set off car alarms up and down the boulevard. Lifeguards cleared the beach seconds before the vortex vanished into the dark clouds above. Then came Miami's turn. Around 5:00 p.m., a massive supercell rolled out of the Everglades and slammed into the urban corridor. The city's skyline vanished behind curtains of rain so dense it looked like smoke. From Doral to Coral Gables, hail briefly pelted neighborhoods, a rare and unsettling sight for the coastal metro area. Traffic on the Palmetto Expressway ground to a halt as floodwater filled the underpasses. Cars stalled and drivers abandoned their vehicles as the water kept rising. Downtown Metro mover trains slowed to a crawl after lightning strikes near substations disrupted sensors and communication systems. By early evening, Biscayne Bay had vanished beneath a gray curtain of rain, and the roar of thunder became constant like a drumbeat that wouldn't stop. The city of Miami, so often defined by its energy and movement, now stood paralyzed under nature's assault. For residents watching from high-rises or trapped in gridlocked cars, one realization became painfully clear in Florida. Even paradise can turn hostile in a matter of minutes. Before Florida's chaos unfolded, the same storm system had already shown its strength hundreds of miles to the northwest. Early that Saturday morning at 7:12 a.m., meteorologists at the National Weather Service in Mobile detected a strong rotating signature on radar, a tightening hook echo near Andalusia, Alabama. Within minutes, it was clear a tornado was forming. Residents in Covington County barely had 5 minutes of warning before the sky turned black and the roar began. What touched down next was a powerful EF2 tornado packing winds of up to 115 miles per hour. The funnel tore across rural farmland, carving a 9-mile path of destruction. Mobile homes were shredded into splinters, grain silos hurled across fields, and pine forests snapped clean in half. Witnesses said the air filled with flying debris and a sound like a freight train that wouldn't stop. Power poles collapsed, leaving tangled lines sparking in the rain. One brick ranch house lost its entire roof deck, the inside exposed to the open sky. Rescue crews struggled to reach the worst-hit areas as fallen trees and power lines blocked nearly every road. That's when chainsaw brigades from neighboring Escambia County arrived, volunteer teams who carved paths through the wreckage to reach survivors. By mid-morning, the American Red Cross had opened a relief station at the Covington County Kiwanis building, handing out tarps, water, and first aid kits to families who had lost everything. Power crews worked through the drizzle and debris to restore lines even as distant thunder warned that the storm system wasn't finished yet. Because by then, that same parent supercell, the one that had ravaged Alabama's countryside, was racing east toward the Florida peninsula. The tornado was just the beginning, the opening act of a disaster that would soon unleash hail floods and wind across the Sunshine State.
Crazy. It's gonna take your car.
By the time the skies finally cleared, 2 states were left: scarred Alabama picking through the wreckage of a deadly tornado, and Florida still glistening beneath puddles of floodwater and shattered glass. The sun returned, but it didn't bring comfort, only silence, and the heavy reminder of how fragile life under these skies can be. This wasn't just another spring storm. It was a wake-up call, a warning written in lightning and hail. A reminder that in a world growing hotter and more unstable, even an ordinary weekend can spiral into chaos. What began as a line of clouds over the Gulf turned into a multi-state disaster that ripped across the South in less than a day. For the families in Palm Bay, Melbourne, and Miami, the memories won't fade soon. The sound of hail hammering the roof like gunfire, the flash of transformers exploding the eerie stillness that followed when the wind finally stopped. For Alabama's small towns, the scars of that tornado will take months to heal. Yet amid the destruction came something powerful: resilience. Firefighters cutting through debris in the pouring rain, neighbors lending tarps flashlights and food, volunteers showing up with chainsaws and open hands. That's the heart of the South and the heartbeat of America in crisis. But, as meteorologists warn, this was only the beginning. The 2025 storm season is far from over, and the next system is already building on the horizon. The question now isn't if another storm will come, it's when. If this story moved you, if it made you stop and think about how powerful nature can be, don't let it fade when the video ends. Share this story with someone who lives in storm country, and subscribe to stay updated on real stories from across America's storm season. Because awareness isn't just information, it's preparation. Question for you. Do you think storms like this are simply part of nature's cycle, or signs that our climate is changing faster than we're ready for? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Every story, every voice, every perspective matters, because every storm carries a message. And the real question is, are we listening?